What is the most common area that I provide feedback to my author clients as a developmental editor? Well, if you guessed show more and tell less, then you were right. And in this video, we're going to talk about how you actually do that. How do you show more in your writing with fiction and tell less? Hi, I'm Charlotte. I am a book coach and developmental editor, and I help women unapologetically write their narratives to become a published author. So if you've ever struggled or gotten the feedback that you need to show more and tell the readers less information, then this video is for you. And I want to start by saying that you are not alone. This is something, again, is the most common area of feedback that I give my developmental edit clients. So you are not alone in this. It is a skill that can be developed and will be developed as you watch this video. So know that practice does make perfect in this situation, and you can continue to grow your craft of writing by leaning into some of these tips I'm going to share with you today. So to help illustrate this, I have actually created a fictitious women's novel that we're going to pull from to work through a couple of examples of how we can take some of the writing that's currently telling the reader all the different movements of the character and lean into how we might show what the character is doing to convey their emotions and how they're feeling about the situation that they are in. So here's the premise of the book. The book title is called When the Sky Clears. After losing her husband in a tragic accident, Leah must rebuild her life and reconnect with her dreams. Struggling to manage her daughter, a failing bakery, and her grief, she starts attending a dance class as an outlet for her pain. Through the women that she meets in the class, each with their own story of loss, love, and second chances, Leah begins to heal and discover her passions for life. So now we're going to pull a couple passages from this fictitious novel that I created and explore how we can expand in a way that invites the reader in and really has them connecting with the emotions and the journey of this main character, Leah, versus just kind of telling us like, oh, she's feeling grief today, or she went to the dance class. Like, how do we really invite the readers into her inner world? So here's an example of telling the readers what Leah is experiencing. So Leah was heartbroken over her husband's death. So that is a very literal way of telling the reader that she's heartbroken. And this doesn't necessarily pull the reader in. They don't feel that heartbreak. They can maybe think about it and be like, yeah, that would be horrible, or maybe they've experienced it so they understand what that feels like. But the writing itself doesn't convey the emotions that Leah is necessarily experiencing. So how do you flip this to then write something that is showing the reader what she is feeling? So that might sound something like, Leah hadn't moved the shoes by the door in months. His jaded jacket still hung on the hook where she'd left it that morning, untouched by her hand, but often held by her gaze. So you can understand how that phrase is really conjuring up this feeling of this hole of missing this person. Their belongings still are where they were left, and you can just feel kind of what that experience would be like. And you're getting the visual of the shoes, of the jacket. And so this is really showing the readers what it feels like to have that hole of that person no longer being there, versus just saying she's heartbroken because her husband died. Okay, let's look at another passage. If we were to tell the reader, we might say something like, she was nervous about starting her dance class. Okay, that's very normal. A lot of people are very nervous when they start new things. But does that really convey emotions or maybe the turmoil that she's feeling inside? So if we were to flip that and show the readers that she was feeling nervous, it might sound something like this. Her hands trembled slightly as she laced her shoes, and her reflection in the studio mirror showed her chewing on her bottom lip. The instructor's upbeat voice in the background felt like a distant noise, drowning out the thumping of her own heartbeat. So again, you're getting so much more visualization, and I think that's one of the cool things that showing does, is that it invites all the different senses in, right? So we're getting her trembling hands. We're understanding that she's in the classroom, and the classroom, dance classrooms have those mirrors on the wall. So she's looking up at her reflection, and she's biting her lip, and you can hear the voice of the instructor in the background, but she's also feeling her heart thumping. So again, we're getting a very sensory experience that is showing us that she's nervous without telling us specifically she is nervous in her dance class. Okay, so another example, and as we heard in the synopsis of the novel, the bakery was struggling financially. And so we know from kind of reading that little blurb about the book that that is an element of the story. But if you're just to put that in the middle of a chapter that the bakery was struggling financially, again, we're not getting a whole lot of details and we don't know what the implications of that might be. So here's how you might not just tell the reader that she's struggling financially, but showing the reader. So it might sound something like this. Leah counted the cash in the till, her brow furrowing as she flipped the open sign to closed. The half-empty display case taunted her with yesterday's unsold muffins, their tops hardened under the fluorescent lights. Again, we're getting so much more visualization. So we're understanding that there's leftover product from the day before, and again, they didn't sell today. We're also understanding kind of a little bit more of like the cash flow, and just kind of, you can get a sense of like, this doesn't feel like an overly positive day. So again, we're showing the reader that this isn't going very well without specifically saying there's financial struggle. And what's also really interesting about using the technique of show and tell is that this is a way to honestly add more words to your manuscript. Because again, if you're thinking about the bakery was struggling financially, if you're just writing in these short sentences the whole time, you're going to feel like you're not getting your word count for a full novel. So when you're able to expand and invite in more description of what's happening around them and within them as characters, this is when you can really expand and create these beautiful sentences that will flow throughout your entire book and help you reach your word count. Okay, so I have 2 more examples I want to share with you to continue to illustrate what this looks like. But if you're liking this video, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Okay, so next example is she felt isolated and alone. Again, very valid experiences given what she's experiencing. But again, just telling the reader that she feels isolated and alone doesn't really invite us into, again, her whole experience and what that feels like. So when we're showing the reader what this is like, it might sound like this. At night, the empty house seemed to echo with silence. She ate dinner on the couch, the TV droning on with a show she wasn't watching. With the empty chair beside her, it felt like a void pulling at her insides. Oh, that almost makes me want to cry right now, but that is just a heartbreaking scenario. And you can understand that she's feeling alone and she is feeling isolated. She's not really engaged with her environment, and this empty seat is just absolutely pulling at her and creating a lot of emotion. Okay. So my last example is going to be a little bit more positive. I know this topic has been a little bit heavy, but again, I think that can really convey how showing can get deeper into the feelings, the emotions, and the actions of our characters. Okay, so this last example for telling is Leah was happy to be dancing again. So that's a great, wonderful thing, especially if we're moving towards the end of the book and we're realizing this character is growing. Maybe her grief isn't so overwhelming. And so it's a wonderful statement to write. And yet, it is still telling the readers what she's feeling instead of taking the reader along for the ride to show them how she's feeling. So if we were to flip that and make this more of a showing statement, it might sound something like, Leah's feet moved in time with the music, her body swaying effortlessly to the beat. She hadn't noticed the smile creeping across her face until she caught her reflection. Flushed cheeks, bright eyes, and a lightness in her steps she hadn't felt in years. Oh, so you can imagine if that was even like the last paragraph or towards the very end of the book, you're giving everyone the feels that it's kind of like you've been rooting for this character and you understand that they are feeling so much better. There's been some sort of change in their life. And so you can really champion this character versus just saying she was happy to be dancing again. Do you see the difference? Okay, I really hope these examples have been helpful because ultimately we are really trying to invite the reader in as if they are there next to our characters and experiencing what they're experiencing. We really want the emotional states of the situations conveyed through the actions and physical descriptions and the sensory details. And so when we can bring all of those together, that really helps the reader experience those emotions with the character and create a very immersive narrative and story that readers want to keep reading. All right, I hope this was helpful, and again, be sure to like this video and subscribe. Comment below if you found this helpful or if there was one example that really stood out to you, and I will see you in the next video.